Youth on the Rock. Jesus is the rock. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel.
The air in the sterile ward felt like ice. The doctor didn't even look Omar in the eye. He just stared at the clipboard, a death warrant in blue ink. The shingles have reached a critical state. Your internal organs are failing. Medication is a waste of resources at this point, the doctor muttered, his voice hollow. He finally looked up, his gaze grim and final. Go home, Omar, make your peace. Wait for the inevitable. As the doctor's footsteps echoed away, Omar felt the walls closing in. He was a son of old money, a son of a family whose name was etched into the very foundations of their high society religious community. He had checked every box 5 prayers a day, exact tithing, grueling pilgrimages. He had tried to buy his life with devotion, yet here he was, dying in a hallway bed, a discarded relic. Why? He wheezed, his skin burning as if doused in gasoline. I did everything right. At 3:00 a.m., the hospital was a tomb. Through the haze of agony, a voice pierced the silence. It was coming from a television in a room down the hall, the door left slightly ajar. Omar dragged his dying frame across the floor, his breath coming in ragged gasps. On the flickering screen, a man spoke with a fire Omar had never known. Jesus is the great healer. If you call unto him, he will heal you completely. Omar collapsed back onto his bed, his heart hammering. Jesus, he whispered, tears carving tracks through the grime on his face. If you are real, if you are more than a story, show yourself, and I will serve you until my last breath. The room suddenly surged with an impossible pressure. The shadows vanished. A figure stood at the foot of his bed, draped in a light so brilliant, it felt tangible. The man's face was a sun of compassion. Omar. The voice was like rushing water and a gentle breeze all at once. I am here. As the figure touched Omar's shoulder, a literal bolt of electricity surged through his spine. The searing pain vanished. The sores on his skin smoothed over instantly. For the first time in years, the screaming in his nerves fell silent. The recovery was a medical impossibility. The doctor called it a spontaneous remission, but Omar knew better. When he told his parents, expecting joy, he found only venom. You trade our heritage for a carpenter? His father hissed, his face contorted in rage. You are dead to this family, and mark my words. Omar, watch your back. This world is small for a traitor. Months later, Omar was deep in the mountains on his first mission trip. The narrow, winding road hugged the edge of a 1,000-foot drop. He pressed the brake as he approached a sharp turn, but the pedal went limp against the floor. The brakes, he gasped. The steering wheel jerked. Someone had tampered with the tie rods too. The car hit the guardrail, flipped, and soared into the abyss. Omar had a split second to cry out, Father, into your hands, before the world became a chaotic blur of shattering glass and screaming metal. The car slammed into a jagged rock at the bottom and began to hiss. Trapped in the wreckage, smelling gasoline, Omar saw a flash of white. A massive, towering figure with wings like lightning reached into the fire. The car vanished in a fireball, but Omar felt himself being lifted by a force that defied gravity. He woke up on the shoulder of the highway, miles from the wreck, completely unscathed. Limping slightly from adrenaline, Omar saw headlights, but it wasn't help. 2 black SUVs, his family's security detail, screeched to a halt. 4 men stepped out, wielding heavy iron pipes and suppressed pistols. The car crash didn't finish you. The lead thug growled, leveling his weapon. Your father told us to make sure you don't leave these woods. Omar stood his ground, his heart calm. You aren't fighting me. he said softly. The thug laughed and stepped forward, but his laughter turned into a shriek of pure terror. Behind Omar, the air began to ripple and glow. A colossal angel, 9 feet tall, with a face like a lightning storm, materialized. It didn't say a word, but the sheer weight of its holy presence crushed the breath out of the assassins. The men dropped their weapons, their faces turning pale as ash. They didn't just run, they scrambled over each other, sobbing in fear as they fled into the darkness, realizing they had tried to ambush a man guarded by the Almighty. Moments later, the real help arrived. An ambulance pulled up, sirens blaring. "How did you find me?" Omar asked the paramedics as they checked his vitals. "This is a dead zone. No cell service for 50 miles. The paramedic looked at his radio, puzzled. "We got a high-priority dispatch, sir." A voice came over the emergency channel, clear as a bell, giving us your exact coordinates. He said to hurry, because his servant was waiting. The paramedic, a man with eyes that had seen too much, looked at Omar with a mixture of awe and confusion. "We didn't get a call from a person, sir. The dispatch center received a signal, a coordinates ping, and a voice told them exactly where to find the survivor of the wreckage. But when they tried to trace the line, there was nothing. No record of the call ever existing." Omar leaned his head back against the cool plastic of the ambulance seat. He knew. Weeks later, despite the threats from his father, Omar refused to silence his testimony. He traveled to a remote mountain village for a mission trip, his heart set on sharing the peace he had found. The sun was dipping below the jagged peaks, casting long skeletal shadows across the dirt road. Omar walked alone toward the mission house, the air thick with the scent of pine and something else. Something metallic. Suddenly, the roar of 2 black SUVs shattered the silence. They screeched to a halt, boxing him in. 6 men climbed out, their faces obscured by balaclavas, carrying heavy iron pipes and serrated blades. "Your father sends his regards." "Omar," the leader hissed, his voice a low growl. He said, "If you won't serve the family's gods, you won't serve any god at all." Omar stood his ground, though his heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. "I've already died once in that hospital," Omar said, his voice remarkably steady. "You are a little late to scare me." The thugs laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "Let's see if your Jesus can sew your head back on." They lunged, but as the lead attacker swung a heavy pipe toward Omar's temple, the air suddenly hissed with the sound of 1,000 rushing winds. The temperature dropped, then surged into a blinding, searing heat. From the darkness behind Omar, a light erupted. It wasn't the flicker of a flashlight or the glow of a hearth. It was a violent, holy brilliance that turned the night into high noon. A figure emerged from the light. It stood nearly 9 feet tall, its skin like polished brass and eyes like burning coals. Its wings weren't feathers, but shimmering curtains of white fire that spanned the width of the road. The angel didn't speak. It simply walked. Step, step, step. With every footfall of the celestial guard, the ground trembled. The thugs froze. Their weapons clattered to the dirt. The brave men who came to kill a preacher were now reduced to trembling children. They saw the sheer weight of eternity standing behind the man they intended to break. What is that?" one thug screamed, his voice cracking. "It's not a man!" another shrieked, scrambling backward and falling into the ditch, terrified. They piled back into their vehicles, tires spinning wildly in the dirt as they fled into the night, leaving a cloud of dust behind them. Back in the city, in the cold, marble, floored study of the family estate, Omar's father sat by the fireplace. His phone rang. It was the lead mercenary. "We can't do it." The voice on the other end was sobbing. "We can't touch him." "I paid you to silence him," the father roared. "You don't understand." The man wailed. "We didn't find a man. We found a fortress. There was something holy with him. If we had stayed, we would have been dust." "Sir, stop. You aren't fighting your son. You're fighting the one who holds the stars." The phone went dead. The father looked at his hands. The hands that had built an empire of rituals and old money. For the first time in his life, they were shaking. He looked at the family idols on the mantle, cold and silent. He realized then that the great healer wasn't just a story Omar had picked up in a hospital ward. He was a king, and the king had moved his hand to protect his own. The moral lesson of the story is, true faith is not found in rituals or gold, but in a relationship with the living God who fights for his own.